Hello guys, this is your friend Naruto Nexus 2.0 and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is the Sovreeigns of Konoha focuses on them taking political and physical control, part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. The dark of night, a loud sound was heard, possibly louder than the screams of the entire Haruno family. It was the snoring of one Uzumaki Naruto. The whiskered blonde was fast asleep, recovering from an earlier scuffle with a most mysterious missing nin, while downstairs things were far from perfect. Shut the dobe up, a Uchiha can't nor will sleep in these conditions. One arrogant prick by the name of Uchiha Sasuke, a duck-haired black-haired kid with severe issues, complained to their sensei, a silver-haired masked ninja of the Jonin rank, by the name of Hitaki Kakashi. The masked man sighed. Listening to the boy rant through his locked door, luckily for the noise level the pink-haired one was asleep as well. I know that the guy should be too tired to move around at this point, but this is my story, so he just recovered quicker than in the anime or manga. He hadn't really wanted to teach anyway. Kakashi saw himself as more of a lone operative, he worked the best alone. The few friends he had died in battle beside him, his sensei, who happened to be the so-called Dobe's father, not that anyone aside from a few knew that Obito-san Rin-chan did that leave guy his best friend. Sometimes, the silver-haired man had to wonder if he had a curse that killed all those who were close to him. That was the point he argued with trying to get out of teaching in the first place. Flashback. Hokage's office, the day after the Rookie 9 graduated. Hitaki-san, you must train Uchiha-sama, he needs the jutsu in your arsenal, more than any other genin, and other. Quote. Homura, an old man who for some reason was still considered an active ninja, and his sidekick, a evil granny who looked like the mother of some sort of evil toad virgin and Harry Potter fans may know another of this description, called Dolores Umbridge named Kaharu, actively demanded the masked nin, with fellow future mentors Yuhi Kurenai and Sarutobi Asuma, along with ninja parents Hyuga Hiyashi, Inazuka Sume, Akamichi Shuza, Nara Shikaku and Aburame Shibi. The Sandaime Hokage, an old, still tan-skinned man by the name of Sarutobi Hiruzen, coughed to interrupt the current conversation. And by other, you mean Naruto-kun, who despite being labeled a dead last, managed to defeat a Chunin and master a Jonin-level technique. The Hokage took a blow of his pipe crossly. He cared a lot for the spunky little Jinchuriki, and couldn't help but wonder, if Naruto was able to learn a technique like that so quickly, yet fail his exams. He decided to ask to put someone on it. He and Iruka-kun from the academy always had a bad feeling some of the instructors may have sabotaged Naruto's lessons. In fact, they had managed to catch a former janitor of the academy attempt to break Naruto's chair in the classroom, though the man admitted that others were with him in the anti-Naruto plan, courtesy of some persuasion. Via Anko and Ibiki, he managed to pull the civilian council to his side, and he had to have the janitor go before they could get names. That wasn't saying he couldn't fire him, though. Homura-sama, I hear what you say, and while you have a point or two, I'm not going to train him. Bad luck follows me, the kind of luck that kills, that and I have more important things to do with my time. Besides, the boy's attitude was detesting, but he couldn't bring that up without the old bats telling him that the boy was merely suffering from trauma. Yeah, no way in hell that was true, he was just a spoiled brat. So, other than the all-important Uchiha, can we actually get something done? Hiyashi sighed, like organizing the new genin. Now, while Hiyashi may appear to dislike Hinata, he does care, slightly. While he was no dad of the year, he did have an interest in who would be on his daughter's team. The team after all, had to push her to improve and protect her unmarked Byakugan Dujutsu Kekai Genkai. Hiyashi-san has a point, we already know one team, the new Ino-Shika Cho team, Ma team, Asuma grinned while smoking his trademark cigarette. While normally this would induce a complaint from Sum for her sensitive nose, Shibi for its health issues to his bugs, and the old bats, they decided not to, in the hope that the smoke shortens the two advisors' lifespan. That leaves Inuzuka Kiba, Aburame Shino, Hyuga Hinata, Haruno Sakura, Uchiha Sasuke, and Uzumaki Naruto. Do we really need to teach that boy anything? Koharu snapped. That boy is too dangerous, idiotic, irresponsible, immature. He's a teenager, that sort of comes with the territory. Shikaku sighed, it's troublesome, but we all were like that, heck even my boy acts like that, sometimes. And after all, we have to take on any genin who manages to pass the academy, and the test that follows, Shibi stated in his monotone, causing the elders to pale. After all, they helped the civilian council pass that law, after all, to give the civilians more ninja from their way of life into the armed forces, thus increasing their overall influence. And as to his immaturity, perhaps being teamed with my son could possibly help him mature. Or, the thing inside him will kill off all your insects, with its the Hokage coughed to cut off Homura. Shibi didn't flinch. He knew quite well his son was safe from the chakra that the Jinchuriki could possibly give off, for unlike the old badgers, he and the rest of the parents here met the boy once or twice, and knew he was not a monster. Actually, I think that setup might work, with my daughter, Hinata, on the team, as well, Hiyashi mentioned, surprising everyone. Huh, Shuza grunted. This is new and troublesome. What was in my water this morning? Sum said to herself. Going off what Shibi-san said, if my daughter was placed on his team, perhaps some of his drive might pass to her. At the minimum, even the most basic of Byakugan could tell if his tenant's chakra was getting loose or influencing him. Hiyashi let off a rare grin. The council had a betting pool for who was able to best beat or mess with the idiots on the Elder and Civilian Council each meeting, and it looks like the 3 free hot spring coupons were all his. Actually, we of the Elder Council had talked it over, and we decided that Inuzuka Kiba would provide the same sort of inspiration to your daughter, Hiyashi-san. Koharu smiled evilly. Inside, Hiyashi was cursing. Now he couldn't get those tickets without insulting Sum. Last time he did that, the Hyuga compound smelled like dog piss for a month. No one noticed that Kakashi was smirking. So, then it looks like Kurenai-chan has Inuzuka Kiba, Hyuga Hinata and Aburame Shino, so I guess that means that Haruno Sakura, Uchiha Sasuke and Uzumaki Naruto are on my team, the Jonin smirked. The resulting scream of fury from the elders shook several window frames, and one masked Jonin got himself 3 hot spring coupons and was treated to a night of fine drinking with Sum and the former Ino Shikacho, on their tab of course. End flashback. Kakashi quickly came to a conclusion after that, teaching sucked. He was actually expected to be on time and had to deal with whining from all 3 of them. Though seeing Sasuke getting clawed by Tora was a good chuckle. Kakashi quickly decided that Naruto was his favorite among the 3. While Sakura was virtually useless, and Sasuke an arrogant prick who expected Kakashi to teach him all his jutsu and strutted around like royalty, Naruto was willing to learn, and most importantly, he had humility, well more than the others anyway. Naruto didn't have anything handed to him like his teammates, and knew how to respond to failure, by getting back up and improving himself. Kakashi saw that with how his failure with the demon brothers, led to his desire to better himself, which led to his shocking show of skill in fighting Momoichi Zabuza. If the boy could use such skill with only 2 jutsu really at his disposal, with only a little help from Sasuke, the boy could be just as great as his own sensei, Namikaze Minato, the Yondaime Hokage. Of course, the boy needed to pick up a few more jutsu first, and improve on his taijutsu, and chakra control, and perhaps see if he could use genjutsu. What did they teach him at the academy, anyway? The boy's taijutsu left too many weak spots, and he could barely spell genjutsu, let only do it. His chakra control was abysmal. Pakun could use a jutsu better than the boy. If the Kyuubi wasn't in him, he'd be in a lot of trouble. As his lack of taijutsu nearly cost them Flashback, Wave Country. The group, weary from their last battle with the swordsman Zabuza, who was killed by the Kiri hunter Ninboy, though Naruto was still adamant though the Nin was female, and Tazuna seemed to agree with him about her gender, with their exhausted sensei being carried by the knucklehead and brooder, before Sakura yelped loudly to get the others' attention. Sasuke-kun, Kakashi-sensei, Baka. Standing before them, was a new ninja. This ninja was wearing ragged brown robes that covered his face, with no visible height. In fact, all they could tell was this ninja was male. Ah, so Zabuza-chan was defeated by a bunch of brats and a dead-weight ninja, No matter, it appears I have to kill the bridge builder now. We won't let you, Dadbao. Naruto yelled, before dropping Kakashi. Their sensei then flattened Sasuke, before the Uchiha pushed the unconscious man off, as Tazuna backed away slowly. Dobi, how dare you drop such a weight on an elite? Naruto ignored him. Yeah, Baka, how dare you try to flatten Sasuke-kun? The ever-faithful pink-haired bitch added in. Naruto flinched in pain at that remark, before turning back towards their strange enemy. Humph, what pathetic teamwork, this won't be worth the chakra. Beast Wave Palm. The mysterious ninja sliced his hand, which was coated in blue chakra, as a shockwave of wind-energized chakra flew at the genin. Sasuke and Sakura jumped out of the way. The jutsu would have instead continued and struck Tazuna and Kakashi, but Naruto, before jumping, did everyone's favorite hand seal. Shadow Clone Jutsu. A shadow clone appeared where Naruto was a second ago, taking the strike and bursting into smoke. This move was witnessed by the so-called out-cold Kakashi, who made a mental note to punish the others later. Not being undone, Sasuke did a series of hand signs, before ending on a tiger seal. Fire Release. Great Fireball Technique. A large ball of fire flew from the mouth of the Uchiha and flew straight at their foe. The foe calmly did the hand signs bird, boar and serpent. Water Release. Bubble Barrier. The ninja let out a burst of bubbles from his mouth, which formed into a wall that took the fireball head-on and negated it entirely. Shit. Sasuke grumbled as Sakura charged at the ninja with a fury, a kunai in hand. Time to prove myself worthy of Sasuke-kun, a ninja who plays with bubbles is no match for, she was thinking before the ninja did hare, monkey, horse and rat. Genjutsu. Zora's Illusion of Darkness. Sakura suddenly dropped her kunai and fell to the ground, twitching. However, no one noticed her nose bleed. Sasuke-kun, oh. Sakura ch. Naruto said, before finding himself unable to call her that, before he created a series of shadow clones who charged at the Rouge Ninja. The ninja quickly put together the hand signs dragon and tiger. Foolish. Wind Release. Hurricane Gust. The ninja inhaled deeply, before letting out a gust of high-powered wind that blew away about all of the shadow clones, before he heard a crunch in the leaves. Turning, he saw to his shock 2 shadow clones coming at him from behind. Little brat must have used those clones as a distraction, impressive. Get out of my way, Dobi, Fire Release, Great Fireball Technique. Out of nowhere, a huge fireball flew and consumed the shadow clones and flew at the Rouge. Teme, you ruined my plan. Naruto yelled. So what? As a Uchiha, my plans are naturally better. Dobi, the still immobile Kakashi was fuming now. That boy was getting trialed when they got back. Actually, those shadow clones were more likely to succeed than your pathetic fireball, water release, gunshot. A burst of water flew from the ninja's mouth, followed by several more. The fireball was hollowed out to resemble a flaming donut before it faded, as the water bullets flew into the woods, before bursting and sending Naruto and Sasuke flying into the air. The Uchiha hit the ground, as did Naruto a second later, before he burst into smoke. What? Another shadow clone. The Rouge Ninja gasped before he suddenly felt a kunai approach him. He barely managed to avoid the weapon, as dozens more flew at him. The ninja managed to avoid being turned to Swiss cheese, but one still managed to embed itself into his right leg. Rag. Ha! A dozen Narutos flew from the woods, all tossing more kunai at their foe, surrounding the ninja. The ninja, with his injury, barely avoided getting any more, before he closed his eyes, and wet his lips with saliva, as if to test the wind. A second later, his eyes shot open, before he jumped with his good leg and flew at the Naruto who happened to be real. Nice strategy, Genin. I'll give you credit, you're the only one here not out cold who should even be a ninja, but I'm afraid that things end here and now. He rapidly did snake, tiger, ox, dragon, rat and dog, before his hand glowed gold. Hidden Sealing Jutsu. Pawa Fuyoshiru, Ketsuki no Seigen no Kopi. He harshly slammed his hand into Naruto's stomach, causing the boy's eyes to grow wide, before he fell unconscious, the clones poofing away with shocked expressions as well. It was at this point that Kakashi managed to force himself up. Summoning Jutsu. Kakashi quickly hit the ground and summoned his Ninken pack, who quickly charged at the injured ninja, with plans of ripping flesh. Sorry, copy ninja, but I have other places to be. The ninja was about to be bit by Bull, before he substituted with a random stick. Kakashi would have pursued him, but he was too injured to do so, so he leaned on Tazuna for support, as the old man carried the surprisingly light blonde, while he left his dogs to drag the disgraces. End flashback. Kakashi had confined the two others in their rooms as soon as they arrived at Tazuna's house, the doors and windows sealed. Kakashi had never seen something so disgraceful. Not only had both put him and their client at risk from the beast wave palm, Sasuke had actually attacked Naruto or his clones anyhow. That was so going on the report, and straight to the Hokage so the old bats didn't get to intercept it. But what was that jutsu the man used on Naruto, anyway? Even this master of 1000 jutsu had no clue. OC ninja techniques, any others come from the show or manga. Water release. Bubble barrier. The seal of the Kyuubi. The great Kyuubi, the greatest of the Biju, or tailed beast, was in a bad mood, growling from behind her sealed cage. Of course, being sealed away in some annoying brat, your power being stolen for some two-wit idiot's use, can make you rather cross. But this boy, he was worse than any of the Fox's previous hosts, for a simple reason. The Biju, in the beginning, were genderless monsters. They were neither male, nor female. But based on whom they were sealed into at first, their genders were determined. Shukaku, the Hachibi and the Yonbi became male, for example, while the Nibi and the Nanbi, as well as herself, became female. Yes, the fearsome, nine-tailed fox, the Kyuubi no Kitsune, was female. Shocking, isn't it? Hell, the only reason she would go on rampages, with tidal waves, earthquakes and mariachi music, was because she was having periods. But being stuck in a boy, it was maddening. Totally different thought process, for one thing, and every time he looked at a girl with a blush, the poor critter felt like a lesbian. Add to it that stupid jutsu that the boy had created, and she was almost contemplating destroying the brat once she had a chance. Fading away for a time would almost be worth it. But what puzzled the Kyuubi, other than why the male she was trapped in somehow managed to be dumber than the gobi after devouring a tank of wine and blood, a sight still laughed at in the Biju 1000-year reunion parties, was what that strange ninja used on the boy. It had done massive damage to his genetic structure, which her powers were siphoned off to heal. Damn the Yondiame. Hard to believe the Kitsune found the guy attractive, or was that just for being stuck in Kushina for so long? Though, she still had a picture of the Shodai Hokage somewhere in her cell. Speaking of, for some reason, a strange scent, similar to the Shodai's, was starting to fill her cell, for odd reasons, but she could also detect a much fouler scent, and others she didn't recognize. Of course, then there was the new seal, that was sitting on a large column of marble right in front of her, showing a giant orange N, which under it was a U of a lighter shade, and going through the middle of them both in the background of it was something that looked sort of like her tail. There were kanji on the seal's various parts, multiple different pairs of them. She'd read them, if only foxes could read, or count really, the boy must be rubbing off on her, but she was definitely sure there were less than a dozen of them, for some reason. Were the scents coming from there? Forest in land of wave. Kakashi was grinning to himself. Naruto was back up and running once again. The copy nin still had no idea what sort of jutsu the kid was hit with, but he was up and running again, thanks to his tenant of course. Then, of course, Sasuke, who he had to free for his new brand of training, or torture actually for the two disgraces, had to try to stab the kid with a kunai while he was brushing his teeth after a shower. Luckily it appeared Naruto was used to cold showers and Sasuke didn't have enough steam to succeed in a stealth approach. The idiot was so going to get it when they got back, civilian council and the bats be damned, but this training should be tough enough. For you see, over the breakfast table, Kakashi had brought up a point. The hunter nin's method of killing Zabuza was off, which led to a scary possibility the maniac was still alive. So, thus the training, or for Sasuke and his pet pink Pomeranian, torture. Okay, today's training is tree climbing. Humph, what are we, monkeys? An Uchiha doesn't climb trees like some common primate, Sasuke smirked, somehow ignoring the threats from Kakashi. Yeah, that was the Baka's job. Sasuke-kun is way too cool for it. Sakura chirped in. Naruto looked sadly down on the ground. Kakashi had to restrain himself from setting the girl on fire, too much paperwork. Actually, you will be climbing. Kakashi smirked, as he jumped onto the tree and commenced to scale up its trunk, backwards, with only his feet, without your hands. Cool. Naruto smiled. Quite, and because of your teammates' actions, Naruto, they have to do it on their own, without any assistance. Summoning jutsu. The smirking Kakashi summoned his pack of ninkin dogs. Every time they fall to the ground, or stay on the ground, my pals will give them a reason to get back up. The dogs almost appeared to be grinning. Hey, I am an Uchiha, how dare you train Adobe instead of me? Because you put your injured sensei and more importantly, your client, in danger from the Rouge Ninja's attack, while Naruto used his own clone to block the attack. You also attacked his clones with a fireball jutsu. Now boys, I think those two need some motivation. Kakashi snapped his fingers, as the dogs barked loudly. Sakura decided to try and stand up for the two of them. Don't you even think about sending those mutts after Sasuke-kun, my mother is on the council, she'll send you to the X. Grr. The tan-furred dog named Gariko made a few dog-style hand signs, before a burst of pebbles from the ground flew and struck Sakura in her overly large forehead, causing her to yelp and jump into the tree's closet branch, rubbing her injured head. Bull and Pakun then grinned, the pug and his bulldog ride doing hand signs. Bark. Bull stepped back, before a large sonic bark of lightning flew at the refusing Sasuke. Dog-style fire release. Yip Ember. Pakun snorted. Dozens of small sparks flew from his nose. The sparks met the thunder bark, before combining with the thunder, creating a larger sonic bark that was filled with exploding lights like fireworks. Dog-style fire release. Firework howl. Pakun smirked as the blast hit Sasuke, sending him halfway up the tree, only for his head to smash through the wood like some dart. Ha! Take that Tem. Naruto laughed, as did Kakashi. I hope that knocked some sense into them. Well, come on Naruto, let's train somewhere else. Oh, by the way, try to mark your high points. Pakun send word if they cheat. Gotcha Kakashi-sama, Pakun smirked. Later at Chizuna's house. Today was a rewarding day, for Kakashi and Naruto that is. The two, sitting around the fire late at night with a cup of hot chocolate, something Naruto seemed to quickly take to. Kakashi heard that Gato imported them from a port town in the land of hot water. Kakashi decided to get some next time they went on a mission around there. Kakashi smiled as he observed his current favorite student sip his drink. Kakashi not only got to see his two problem students utterly embarrassed in such a fashion, but was also able to teach Naruto a great deal. Kakashi was starting to get the big picture. Naruto was a kinetic learner, so he learned things by doing, not with reading on it like Sakura did. He also had shadow clones, and with them was able to learn at an astonishing rate. With hundreds of clones, he was quickly able to scale the trees to their halfway point, and his last climb had set him up to the top of the tree. He was saddened to hear, however, that Sakura had matched that an hour later and Sasuke 15 minutes afterwards. Though he was happy to see that they elected to skip dinner, apparently they were covered in burn marks, bruises, bite marks and smelled like dog piss. Naruto-san, Kakashi spoke up, politely respecting his star pupil. While back in Konoha, Homura, Kaharu and Mrs. Haruno appeared to be sweating in their sleep, like they were having some sort of nightmare. His student looked up from his drink at his masked sensei. Yeah, Kakashi-sensei. Kakashi looked serious. You're going to have to be careful with your jutsu from now on, Kakashi commented. How come, Kakashi-sensei? Naruto was alarmed. Did he have to stop with his shadow clones? As you know, I fear that Zabuza is still alive, and that most likely, the hunter Nin is with him. If that is true, and if Sasuke continues his trend of arrogance, it is likely that he will fight more than he can chew, and enter a life and death situation. I'm all for him getting beaten into a corner like that, maybe give him some humility, but if he does, his Sharingan could activate. Wait, you mean the whole copy jutsu thing? Naruto said, starting to get it. Are you saying he might steal my patented jutsu? Kakashi groaned. You had that thing patented? Naruto smiled. Yeah, apparently Oji-san thought it would be useful for seduction missions, whatever those are. Naruto shrugged. Kakashi was now sighing. Worse than that, your shadow clone jutsu. I'm going to have to watch it too, but if he gets his Sharingan up and running, he could start trying to gain jutsu that way, but the fact is, he'll go overboard with it, just to surpass you, lose all his chakra, and die, and you will be blamed for it by the council. Kakashi finished. Naruto smirked. So, all I have to do is try to keep the Tem from overdoing it, and my shadow clones are free range. Until I can apply the Sharingan proofing seal to you, yes. In the scroll of sealing was a seal made by the ancient Senju that made one's jutsu safe from the theft of the Sharingan. With the competition between the two genin, that jutsu could be their savior. What about you? You have 1000 jutsu he could steal, Naruto asked concerned. I can't seal it onto myself, it will wreck my Sharingan though unlike you, I can be subtle in my jutsu. Hey, I can avoid half the village's Chunin force for over 2 hours, I call that subtle, Datbeo. And your jutsu? I guess you have a point there. Several days later, after several days of guarding the bridge builder, one emotional clash between Naruto and the builder's grandson, more dog bites and a lot of remedial taijutsu, Naruto's taijutsu had rapidly improved, to a point he could hold out against Kakashi in it, for 5 minutes anyway, with the Ika in hand. Even the others were improving, though Kakashi had them spar alone, with several dogs watching them. Anyway, Naruto was taking a break from shadow clone training, while Kakashi took watch over at the bridge. However, as he relaxed, he failed to notice a black-haired youth in a pink kimono approach him from the woods, with a basket filled with herbs. He's one of the ones guarding the bridge builder, the person thought. Perhaps I should take him out now. 1 foot to the neck ought to do it. It was at that point that said boy jumped up in surprise, with a kunai in hand. Who's there? I'm a ninja, and I'm armed. Oh, hey there. Naruto rubbed the back of his head nervously. The stranger got a look at him. The orange-wearing weirdo stuck out like a thumb, pretty much anywhere. Strange garb for a stealthy ninja, though then again Zabuza, the stranger's savior, carried a giant butcher knife around. Hello, the stranger smiled. The boy, Naruto blushed. Oh, hey there. The name's Naruto, of Konohagakure. My name's Haku, I live around here, and I'm looking for herbs, the person smiled. Herbs? What do you need a bunch of weeds for? The person smiled. I have an important person, he's in need of healing, and so I decided to look for some. The strange person named Haku, who Naruto sort of couldn't tell the gender of, continued to forage in the grassy clearing for seemingly random herbs. An important person? Naruto asked. Haku continued to forage. Of course, don't you have any? Naruto smiled. Of course, there are Iruka-sensei, Oji-san, Tsuki-sama, Ayame-chan, and Kakashi-sensei. Naruto stood up. Haku couldn't help but smiled. You seem to care about a lot of people. That's good, for you see, they say you can only be your strongest if you're protecting someone precious to you. There is a saying around here. Haku smiled, before getting up and leaving. Naruto looked up into the clouds. Yeah, and that's why I want to be Hokage. OC ninja techniques, any others come from the show or manga. Dog-style Earth release, Pebble Musket. Zabuza had found the young Haku during a mission many years ago, before his attempted coup against the Yondaime Mizukage. While she, yes his companion was female, hadn't taken part, she agreed to leave with him, and has since followed him on his mission, to get enough money and physical power to help his old friend. Truth was Zabuza was old friends with Yagura, the Yondaime Mizukage and Jinchuriki of the Sanbi, the three-tailed turtle. Back in his childhood, they had been friends, both were misunderstood orphans, Zabuza just a few years older than Yagura. In fact, the reason he slaughtered an entire graduation class, besides to prove that an orphan with self-training was good enough to be a Mizu ninja, but also to spare Yagura the fate of fighting your own comrades. Because of everyone's hatred for him, he would have been gang-attacked, and if the Three Tails was unleashed. Zabuza had also known Utakata, the Rokubi Jinchuriki. Back in the day they had fought together, once he, Utakata and Yagura had single-handedly defeated an entire army of shinobi from the Land of Frost during the Third Shinobi World War. However, with Zabuza's help, Yagura was able to figure out how to control the Sanbi, because of a forgotten Kekai Genkai his clan had, a dujutsu that caused Yagura's distinct purple eyes, which enabled him to control the Three Tails. He hadn't been able to activate it, and the Sanbi didn't exactly help, until Zabuza managed to help him. Afterwards, Yagura was quickly able to become the Yondaime Mizukage at age 15, and Zabuza one of the legendary swordsmen to help his friend maintain power. Then, his friend began suffering from nightmares, all of which had a similar pattern, red eyes with Tomo. These dreams stirred the Three Tails, causing the poor Kage horrid nightmares and hallucinations. Then, there was the Kiri Council. Like Konoha, the council had a civilian side, and they were petrified of Kekai Genkai. This, rather absurd fear resulted in a war in Mizu decades ago, that they kept alive in the civilians of the Land of Water via propaganda, as well as the ninja villages. That's why clans like the Yuki that Haku hailed from had to go into hiding. The last time he had seen Yagura, he had just had one of his Anbu. A man named Ao, do some spying on the civilian council with his stolen Byakugan eye, and had made a startling discovery. They were paying a mysterious group, with strange black robes covered in red clouds, to influence the Mizukage with a mysterious genjutsu, causing the unrest of the beast inside of him, that they were able to use as a sign of insanity to keep Yagura from interfering with the bloodline purges that were devastating the local ninja. These ninja, one who had a hunched back and a strange hat, and the other with long blonde hair and an obnoxious voice, never said who they brought in, but they were definitely responsible. So, Yagura gathered Ao, one of the top jonin in the village named Mei Terumi, a rather attractive redhead with two Kekai Genkai, and himself, and devised a plan. Yagura knew that dramatic action had to be done, and knowing his name would be blackened from the council's action regardless, asked his old friend to stage a coup to kill the civilian council, while Ao and Mei unsealed the Three Tails and released it, to stop the council for getting their hands on it for their own use. However, he did leave a few requests. One, that no matter what, he protected the young Haku, who he began to see like his own daughter. She was the last of her clan, as far as he could tell, and didn't deserve what was happening here. The second was to look for his distant cousin, Yukimaru. He had heard he had vanished, picked up by the S-class Sanin, Orochimaru of the Leaf Village, and Yugura was fearful that he could extort the young boy's power for his own use. So, while Zabuza managed to kill about half the civilian council and a few corrupt members of the Shinobi Council, along with some guy who sold cabbages who assaulted Yugura with them when he was a kid, failed in a complete coup and fled the village with Haku, though never finding Yukimaru, Ao and Mei managed to unseal Yugura and set up a power struggle. Last he heard, Mei was close to becoming the Gondime Mizukage, but he couldn't return yet, not until he found Yukimaru and destroyed the one who ruined his friend. Penny for your thoughts, Zabuza-san. A voice spoke up. Startled, Zabuza drew his sword as Haku drew out a dozen or so senbon. There, standing at the door, was the unknown shinobi who attacked and sealed Naruto. Who are you? Zabuza demanded. Answer and I might not gut you. That, Zabuza-san, I can't do, but I do have information you might be interested in. Zabuza would have rose an eyebrow, if he had any. Yeah, get on with it, the stranger smiled. I heard about your bond with the Yondiame, your friend I believe. I have information about his controller. Care to ask? Zabuza growled. What do you know? The stranger smiled under his disguise. His controller has the Sharingan. His name is Uchiha Madara. Haku looked confused. Zabuza-sama, from what I read, that man must be ancient. He co-founded Konohagakure no Sato, and how can he be alive? The stranger shrugged. How does Zabuza-san lack eyebrows, or how did Yugura Dono hold a giant turtle inside of him? Is anything truly impossible, with enough work that closed the argument? Yes, Madara Tem has many plans, but amongst them is the rebuilding of the Uchiha clan to serve him. However, including himself, there are 3 Uchiha left in the world, and both he and Uchiha Itachi of Akatsuki are sterile. Madara from the techniques he extends his life with, and Itachi is sterile from the sickness that's consuming him, so that leaves only one Uchiha left in the world, Uchiha Sasuke, currently guarding the bridge builder. Zabuza and Haku's eyes were wide open. So, if we kill the brat, that Tem will be screwed, no clan for him. Zabuza grinned evilly under his mask. The stranger stayed unmoving. Or, you could capture him, and force Madara to come out in the open, and then take him on your own. Zabuza turned towards his young ward, daughter in all but law or blood. Haku-chan, change of plans, ignore the bridge builder, capture the Uchiha while I occupy the copy nin, Haku nodded. Yes, Zabuza-sama. The stranger opened the window as if to jump out, but left with one more thing. If you see a blonde-haired kid with whisker marks, try not to kill him. You'll only regret it. Wave Country Bridge construction site sometime later. Kakashi sighed. Here he was, stuck on a bridge, either having to work, or watch the duo while they mutter darkly and glare at him. Naruto was on house watching duty. The poor kid was exhausted for taking the entire watch yesterday, so Kakashi could make sure the duo had learned something, without dogs, persuading them. So here he was, keeping tabs on Duckhead and Howler Pinky. He hoped at least they'd fall off the bridge. Of course, it had to be something else. Hey, lazy bones, you and your squirts could help, you know, Tazuna grumbled. Kakashi sighed. Yes, Tazuna-san. Shadow Clone Jutsu. A second Kakashi appeared next to the original and was sent out to work. He smirked at his students. You two follow him, his students groaned, but seeing as though this guy could re-summon the devils, or dogs as they were actually, they decided to do it, reluctantly, while all the time, planning some way to deal with the ninja dogs. Though, while engrossed in their work, or in the only lazy bum's case, his Ika, mist had begun to creep across the bridge. Meanwhile at Tazuna's house. What? Are you saying that they already left to attack the bridge? Naruto demanded towards the bound samurai. The poor blonde-haired kid, having been allowed to sleep in by Kakashi, woke up to the house being broken into by 2 samurai thugs hired by Geto. Though, in combination with Inari, the bridge builder's grandson, the two punks were tied up, and being interrogated by Naruto and Tsunami, Tazuna's daughter, via a frying pan. Smack. Ow. Bye. Naruto kicked the swearing mercenary in the nuts. Watch it. There's a kid here. Now what was this about attacking the bridge? The other hired gun smirked. You're too late, kid. Zabuza's already there, tearing apart your pathetic team, and the old man, Tsunami, smacked him with the frying pan. Smack. Grandpa. Inari gasped. Naruto glared at the two. He can kill my teammates, world would be better without them, but Kakashi-sensei beat Zabuza once, he can do it again. He won't allow Tazuna-sama to die. Tsunami-san, Inari-kun, you can hold these guys, right? Inari grinned evilly as he nodded. Naruto smirked. He was starting to like the kid. Meanwhile, back on the bridge. Give it up, Zabuza, Kakashi grunted, as he held back the great swordsman using a kunai. Sakura, with her own kunai in hand, was guarding Tazuna while shivering. Meanwhile, Sasuke had been trapped by the false hunter nin in some sort of ice mirror. The false hunter ninja was amazing, being able to use one-handed hand signs, and add to it the rare ice release Kekai Genkai, and this ninja was one skilled piece of work. If they were loyal to the village, that's the type of ninja who could have become Mizukage. You won't get the bridge builder. Disturbingly, Zabuza was laughing. The laugh actually seemed to have humor behind it, as it ranged out across the battlefield. He smirked. Kakashi, I'm not after the bridge builder. The Uchiha is my target now. Haku will defeat him and I will defeat you and the pink-haired waste of air over there. And I think I'll leave the old geezer be. Never liked that Gedo guy much anyway. One certain pink-haired waste of space was now fuming. Leave Sasuke-kun alone, you jerk. Tell your butt buddy over there to get lost and get straight. Sakura yelled. Zabuza growled at the insult, his anger giving him leverage over Kakashi's blade. One could even see an inflated vein, or anime tick-off mark, on his head. Listen here, you brat. You pathetic, talentless cunt. Haku is like my daughter, and a better kunoichi than you ever will be, and if you call her that again, I will mount your head on my fireplace, along with that jerk who damned my best friend, and use it as a dartboard. To add insult to injury, he twisted his blade, knocked the kunai out of Kakashi's grip and sent the copy nin stumbling back. While not in a way to allow an easy decapitation, Zabuza instead tossed the kunai at the girl, who blocked it with her own kunai, but the blade began to spin in the air and thumped her in the large forehead, knocking her out with a concussion. Sasuke-kun, she mumbled in her out-cold state. Zabuza growled. That type of deadweight always bit the dust in the final exams, at least Kiri was safe from that kind of ninja. He spat at the ground near Sakura. Zabuza-san, Kakashi said with odd politeness. Perhaps the thought of losing them caused the copy nin to respect the demon of the mist a bit more. As much as I would like to be free of the two imps, I would also like to keep the council for executing me for the death. The Uchiha is the pet of the elder and civilian council, whose most obnoxious member is the Pinky's mother, so I have to keep them safe. Well, no one said I had to teach them anything really, so, water release, dragon bullet technique. A water dragon rose, aided by the mist and the sea, and flew at the missing nin, who did the hand sign serpent, bore and slammed his hand to the ground. You can't win, Kakashi. Water release. Turtle barrier. A huge turtle, the shape of the Sanbi in miniature, rose up from the ground and blocked the attack, sending a cascading wall of water into the air. Now Kakashi had lost the man again, thanks to the hidden mist jutsu in the air. Fire release. Night illumination. Kakashi did a tiger seal followed by a dog, as a ring of fire flew from his hands and briefly illuminated a flash of metal. Zabuza no doubt trying the silent killing technique again. The two enemy ninja took notice of one another's moves and called out at once after several hand signs. Water style. Great waterfall technique. Two huge waves of water struck them both as the battle raged on between Haku and Sasuke, the last youth of the Uchiha and his fire jutsu versus the last remnant of the Yuki clan and her ice mastery. He was surrounded by the mirrors with Haku warping from mirror to mirror while tossing hundreds of Senbon into the last Uchiha, who now resembled a rather large hedgehog. However, the Uchiha had several advantages. First of all, the mirror jutsu she was using consumed a mad amount of chakra. Despite several sessions of specialized training with Zabuza, she didn't have the reserves to do this for much longer. In a ground fight, she'd be in range for his fire jutsu and that new Sharingan he had obtained after the first 50 Senbon. Second, she was to take him alive, so she couldn't use lethal force, limiting her jutsu. True, while she hated killing, she had a few jutsu for that from Zabuza. Finally, that Sharingan was tracking her movements. Last time he tossed a kunai during a Senbon wave, she had gotten a cut on her upper arm. After a few other attempts of his, he was getting slowly closer, and she was running out of options. Perhaps a change in the flow of battle might help. Doing a few rapid one-handed seals, several ice spikes rose from the ground towards the Uchiha, who easily dodged them. "Is that all you got?" he boasted. "Or has my Sharingan, the ultimate Kekai Genkai, made you realize your pathetic existence pales to mine?" Haku smirked, as she had him where she wanted him, as she flew from an ice mirror and sent a dozen Senbon straight at his unguarded back. But then his damn Sharingan kicked in. "Fool, that isn't even worth copying." Haku shook her head. He couldn't copy it anyway if he tried. Fire release, great fireball technique. A huge fireball was blasted through the Senbon, melting them before hitting Haku, knocking her back. She rolled on the ground, as the flames burned a hole through the battle robes, showing an ice-colored bra underneath. Sasuke smirked. "What? You're a girl. No wonder you're so weak, but I'll cut you a deal. Become one of my bitches and help me revive my clan, and I'll let you live," Haku groaned. "No way in hell I'd do that, you duck," Haku said as she dissolved into water. Sasuke's eyes went wide. That was a water clone. He cursed himself for not being able to copy it, before he heard creeping ice, as an ice spike flew straight at him, with a victorious Haku smiling under her battle mask. "Game over." "Hey." Zabuza was vague in his orders. A guy didn't need an arm to revive a clan, did he? He could be still used as bait. But then, the orange ninja with blonde hair jumped down from above. "And the hero is here, Datbeo." "It's him," Haku commented. "Perhaps he'd be an actually decent employee." Shadow. Naruto began before noticing Sasuke's Sharingan. "That's it, Dobi. Give me that jutsu of yours," Sasuke smugly thought. He groaned, before stopping his jutsu and taking the ice spike himself right through the stomach, only narrowly avoiding the heart and lungs. "Naruto." Kakashi gasped from outside the battlefield, before two water dragon bullets collided once more. Zabuza also commented on the battle. "Oh no, that was off for Haku. That Uchiha must have said something really bad. Have to remember to give him a little bit of torture once we have him. Now to take care of you, Kakashi." Naruto's shout of pain soon filled the air. "Ah!" he yelled out. Sasuke smirked. This was the only thing that idiot was good for, a shield to protect his betters. Haku stared at him. "Why would you take that attack for this stain on humanity?" Haku asked, retracting the ice spike. Its frigidity barely avoided granting hypothermia, but blood loss was still occurring. Naruto groaned out. "I said it, to this girl I met, and I'll say it again, I fight for my precious people. And one of them is my Oji-san, the Sandaime Hokage, told me, as did Kakashi-sensei, that no matter how much of a stuck-up your teammates may be, you can't abandon them. If I was to let Sasuke die like this, I'd be worse than him, as those who abandon their team are lower than trash." Meanwhile, inside the seal. Finally, the time had come. The little baka she was sealed in had gotten himself into near mortal peril. Time for her, the Kyuubi, to save him and perhaps try to take control. She was in the mood for some destruction, or tacos, depending on what came first. However, as she let a stream of her chakra out to heal her host, she noticed some of it was being diverted, straight into that strange seal. What in Kami? The seal briefly began to glow orange, or at least in a portion of it, where a kanji glowed brightly, the kanji for storm. Back to reality. An orange-red glow began forming around Naruto, as his wound began to heal. The air began rippling with power, shaking the bridge slightly. Naruto then began forming tiger, dog, serpent and dragon. Storm release. Gray twister. A huge twister of wind and lightning formed from Naruto, before expanding and crossing the field of battle, as Haku and Sasuke were pulled into its winds. What power? Haku gasped. As the twister dissolved from the stone-adorned bridge, Zabuza and Kakashi found themselves knocked to the ground, as were Haku, Tazuna and Sasuke. Sasuke was unconscious, Tazuna was moaning about his back, and Kakashi and Haku were unable to move. Only Zabuza was able to push himself up. Wait, you're that girl from before, Naruto gasped. Haku's mask had shattered, revealing her face. Yes, I am, she said meekly. How would this guy act like this? She nearly killed him. She mentally prepared herself for the emotional pain that never came. Oh my god, you are so awesome. I can't believe how cool you were in thrashing that Tem around. He looks like a giant hedgehog, you've got to teach me how to do that. He laughed. Haku blushed, before speaking. I'm flattered, but I created the Senbon I use via my Kekai Genkai, and you can't teach, or copy that. She glared at said duck hedgehog, but you were the most impressive, Naruto-san. You somehow managed to create a massive twister with some sort of Kekai Genkai. Naruto looked confused. Ha, that giant twister. How did you create it, and where did you get the hand signs? Kakashi grunted. Naruto shrugged. To be honest, I have no idea. The conscious fellow's sweat dropped. He's definitely unpredictable, Kakashi sighed. This was definitely going to be a lot of paperwork back in Konoha. Please tell me that there isn't a hole in my bridge, Tazuna groaned. Naruto took a look at the twister site. The only thing noticeable was a lot of melted water, some Tem blood, a scorch mark, and small pothole. No, just a minor pothole, Tazuna cursed. Guess it could have been worse, but you better put some of those clones of yours on the job. My workers are unconscious, thanks to no brows over here. Don't make me kill you. And your teammate is out cold for now, so. I'm afraid, bridge builder, that pothole is the least of your trouble now, a voice said. Turning around, Naruto and Zabuza spotted a short man in a brown business suit, with an army of 200 assorted thugs and the occasional Yahoo. Getu, Zabuza growled. The short man, the island's fiend, Getu, grinned like a Cheshire cat. Ah, Zabuza-san, so you've decided to ignore my orders for the bridge builder. Too bad, I was hoping to let you kill him and those leaf nins, then kill you and collect the bounties on you and the copy nin, and be on my way. Yeah, like these fools you hired could kill me, or anyone here. Hell, the Pinky could beat your jokes of an army. The jokes growled at the insult Zabuza had thrown at them. Getu just smiled coldly. Ah, the humor of the cornered man. Boys, destroy the bridge builder and the traitor. Whoever takes him out gets his ice bitch, and who takes the bridge builder gets the pink one. The man smirked cruelly. Naruto looked back towards Kakashi. Can't we just toss her at them? He shook his head. It would after all be too much paperwork. Well then boy, you're with me. Seeing as I have no more reason to take the geezer's neck, and Haku's injured, I'll just kill these clowns and be on my way, Naruto smirked. Need some help with that. After all, protecting Tazuna is my mission, and protecting my sensei, or any of my precious people, is my duty, as is sadly my team as well, though if they get maimed I guess it couldn't hurt. Zabuza glanced at him. This kid was a lot like Yagura. If he squinted, he could almost see an image of his late friend overlapping the young kid, and could almost hear their voices as one. To be Hokage Mizukage, that's my dream, then everyone will have to recognize me, and I'll be able to protect my friends. Zabuza smiled, as he hosted his massive sword. Let's do it, Tazuna then wailed. Don't break my bridge, no matter what you do. The two ninja then charged at the armed horde. Naruto blocked a sword slice with a sharp kunai, before creating a dozen shadow clones, who charged into the armed mob with more kunai at the ready. Naruto then jumped into the air, before yelling. Storm release, Grey Twister. Now airborne, the tip of the storm just missed the bridge road and thus the mob was sucked up and spewed out randomly, hitting the ground with random snaps of broken necks and other bones. Haku and the others must have been lucky to escape so easily from the storm, or was it just his bad luck that Sasuke did? Heads up Genin. Water release. Great waterfall technique. A giant wave formed from the accumulated water in the air as the huge wave swamped the battlefield, wiping away rogues, while the shadow clones were able to avoid the attack. Kakashi sighed, and Haku gave him a curious look. Is it wrong to say that Naruto and your sensei over there work better as a team than my Genin? Haku laughed. Wait, they're actually a team. Back to the fight, Zabuza just cleaved a few swords man clean through, before he groaned. Some punk just managed to stab him with several kunai, in the back. Zabuza-san. A clone gasped before a rouge destroyed it. Haku gasped. Zabuza-sama. Haku cried she was unable to protect her master. She was failing as a tool, her important person was probably fatally injured. URG, I'm sorry, Yugura-sama, Mei-chan, Ao-san, Zabuza gasped for air, but, I'm not going down alone. He charged blindly, ignoring more accumulating injuries, as he flew straight at the slowly retreating Gedu. Zabuza, spotting him, yelled out a battle cry and tossed his blade, the great blade going straight into Gedu, knocking both it and the man into the churning sea below, definitely dead. Naruto, after his shadow clones and twisters had finished off the last of the men, rushed to the downed man. Zabuza-san, he gasped. The eyebrowless man looked at the boy, and smiled. This boy was again starting to look like Yugura, or was his mind playing tricks on him? Boy, bring me, to Haku-chan, please. Naruto had tears in his eyes, as he dragged the slowly dying man to his daughter. He lowered him next to her, as Haku struggled up. Zabuza-sama. Zabuza looked at her. Please don't die. You're my special person, my reason to live, my two-san. She cried. Zabuza raised his hand, and held it to Haku's cheek. Haku-chan, I was glad that to meet you, it was nice to have a family of some kind. I couldn't have stuck to my, and Yugura-sama's plan, without you. This boy, he's a lot like Yugura, he turned to the boy and Kakashi. He has a biju in him, doesn't he, just like my friend, the Yondiame Mizukage. Naruto and Kakashi looked alarmed, Kakashi's regular eye briefly darting towards the unconscious failures of his. So, it's a secret then. Perhaps, that was better than it being known. Let me guess, it's the Kyuubi. Don't answer, it's evident on your face. Zabuza smiled under his ripped mask. Kid, your dreams, don't give up on them, no matter what. Yugura had less than you did, in a town that made Konoha look like a flower field, but he still became a cage, and I believe, you can too, he smiled. Haku, I'd give you my blade, but it's kind of underwater, my bad. Haku was crying as Zabuza chuckled, but, no matter, you were never a killer anyway, you don't need a sword. You just need a strong friend. Kakashi-san, I wish to ask you a favor. The copy nin looked over to the dying mist swordsman. Take Haku with you, to Konoha. Take her, under your wing, with this pathetic team of yours. Haku, like you stayed with me, I ask that you stay with whatever your name was. Naruto sniffled with tears. Uzumaki. Uzumaki Naruto. Yes, stay with Naruto-san, help him, become Hokage, but boy, beware, of your teammate, his clan has the power, to control containers, one did so to Yugura, and he'll do it, to you. Zabuza collapsed, as Haku let out a flood of tears. Zabuza-sama. Later in the Hokage's office, Konoha no Sato. With the death of Gedu, by the hands of the late missing nin, Momoichi Zabuza, Things are looking up in the Wave country now. The civilians ransacked his mansion, and now have all the money he stole from them, as well as interest. Trade is booming, no doubt, and thanks to the new, great Naruto bridge, Kakashi was giving his report to the Sandame, with Naruto and Haku, now with a new leaf high 8, behind him. Wait, they named the bridge after me. Naruto said exited, before noticing Haku. It should have been the Great Zabuza Bridge, Kakashi smiled. Naruto, it was you who finished the bridge via shadow clones. While a certain duck head was stuck at the house. As it was, they named the wave entrance to the bridge the Zabuza Gate, and the fire entrance the Kaisa Gate. Naruto noticed Haku's smile sadly at this. Naruto-kun, Kakashi-san, well done, the Hokage smiled as he blew from his pipe. You both went above and beyond the mission, which was evolved from AC rank to an A rank. I've already sent a bonus, along with your original pay straight to both of your accounts. Naruto's account was guarded by one of the Hokage's oldest friends in the bank, one who knew about Naruto's father. The man was firmly entrenched when it came to the vault. In his time he stopped countless attempts of civilians and ninja to take Naruto's cash for either spite or to repay the damage the Kyuubi left. And you, Haku-san, I've already sent the non-bonus payments of both Haruno Sakura and Uchiha Sasuke, whose pay was deducted due to their crimes. As well, their names being removed from the mission records on this mission, as well as a large fine deducted from their family accounts sent to Naruto's and Kakashi's accounts, and the both of them placed on a full week of the most horrible D-ranked missions. Including catching Tora, cleaning the public restrooms, and removing massive bunions from Choji's grandmother's feet. He tried to get them sent back to the academy, but the civilian council and elder council stood firmly against it, though he oddly got Danzo's support. Into a new account in your name that I set up. That should be well enough to help get you started, before you take on more missions with Team 7. However, there is the matter of the bingo book price for Zabuza. Send it to the people in Wave, Haku said sadly. I can't use that kind of money. Naruto placed a hand on her shoulders as Haku blushed. Haku, you okay? You kind of look like you have a fever or something. Kakashi smiled at Naruto's question. The kid was more concerned in how Haku was feeling, instead of trying to get a rebound chick. Okay, I understand, the Hokage smiled. Kakashi will give you elemental training while the rest of your team, as loosely as I can apply that term, is done with their punishment. Naruto-kun, I hope you don't mind, but I was unable to secure housing for Haku-san at the moment, so she'll have to stay with you. That was all that could be said before Haku fainted. While somewhere in town, a pale-eyed heiress suddenly felt someone was ripping her off somehow. Haku-san, Haku-san. Naruto shook her, before looking around at the older men. They smiled. I believe Haku-san is tired, why don't you take her to your home? Naruto nodded vigorously before taking the unconscious girl with him out of the room. Now the old Hokage turned towards Kakashi. Kakashi, I also read in your written report about Naruto's sudden ability to use the Kumo Kekkei Genkai, Storm Release, and the mysterious attacker, and I believe I may have an idea of what the attack was. I have never seen it myself, but it's an ancient technique, from years back. It's a seal that transfers Kekkei Genkai. As you may or may not know, Kekkei Genkai originated as genetic mutations or as an advanced chakra skill, found in 1 out of 1,000 shinobi. However, these were not something that could be passed on. Much like Tenzo is not able to pass on his wood release Orochimaru grafted onto him, or you and your Sharingan. However, this jutsu would pass the traits to another person, and grafted it into their DNA in a way that allowed for genetic passing of the traits. However, your description may describe something else, an evolved version of the technique for passing multiple Kekkei Genkai, but as to the attacker, I have no leads. At the same time, the sheer amount of genetic alteration that Seal must have done to Naruto would kill any regular person. What about that Hirako guy, who rumor says is preparing a way to obtain multiple ones? Perhaps he has. And why would he give them to a Leaf Nin? He fled the village when the Nine Tails was announced. He's terrified of it. No way in hell would he give that sort of power to Naruto. So, thus the attacker, and his motives, remain unknown. Meanwhile, at a hill in Wave, the wooded hill, sitting with a view of the sea, with a simple tombstone that simply read, Momoichi Zabuza, the stranger appeared to be paying his respects. He sighed. This changes my plan. Your apprentice, by going with our young Jinchuriki, alters my plans, but not in a negative way. Zabuza, you died a hero. I hope Kami sees that. He drew a scroll, and opened it, revealing a very thin transparent veil of some sort. Ceiling style. Undisturbed rest of the dead. The stranger covered the tomb with the veil not detectable by chakra or the human eye. However, the grave glowed as the seal took effect. Wood release. Rise of the red fern. The stranger did a single dog hand sign, as a red fern formed next to the grave. He chuckled. I've been reading that book too much, he chuckled as he left the hill. How dare they make an Uchiha clean filth from mere commoners? This is the sort of thing the Dobi and his ice bitch should be doing, not me. Sasuke declared angrily. Of course, the Anbu, who was wearing a duck mask, had been put in charge of watching them by the Sandame, and so didn't respond. Best not give the idiot any satisfaction. However, the two were refusing to enter the bathroom, stubbornly crossing their arms looking away. This is a job for the Dobi, and his new ice bitch, not for me, the last Uchiha. Yeah, Sasuke-kun is better than this. They continued to rant, until the bathroom's occupant, Shuza Akamichi, exited. As he spotted the two troublemakers, he got an evil grin on his face. Ah, the two, Genin. I am a Uchiha, idiot. My mother's on the civilian council, so don't you dare treat me like that unless you want your F. The duck Anbu quickly sealed their mouths shut with his hands. The Anbu were the cage's self-selected special operations units. They did their operations covertly and silently, and helped maintain order in the village. Because their missions were covert, they were not on record, for either ninja or civilian. Recently, the Sandame had begun renovating the Yondaime's house on the edge of the village. Only accessible from a hidden space-time warp point in the Hokage office, unless you had the key of course. This house was originally supposed to be given to Naruto once he became a Chunin, as well as his heritage. By then, the Sandame had hoped that the young boy would be strong enough for the resulting assassination attempts. This would also help curb down anti-Narutoism. However, two things had changed. The first of them was his new rivalry with Sasuke. Once this became knowledge amongst the populace, there was no doubt that attacks against Naruto would increase, beyond the basic food price overcharging and possible lesson sabotage. While he knew of a few Anbu who already were outspoken against Naruto, the Sandame didn't want to risk one of the boy's guards going turncoat and aiding attackers. The second was the appearance of Haku. Naruto, while no Casanova, still had to share a single-bedroom apartment, so a several-bedroom house might be more preferable. However, another of the more covert missions of the Anbu was to prevent anyone calling an Akamichi some sort of derogatory remark. Past experience has long taught the dangers of insulting people who could grow to the size of hills. Yes, Akamichi-sama. The large man grinned. Getting those two trapped on this duty may have earned Danzo the hop spring tickets, but this would be worth a paid night of dining for him, his wife and their son, on their friends' tabs of course. As he thought this, Inoichi found himself suddenly shivering and Shikaku suddenly felt glad to be on an A-rank mission. Yes, it is quite convenient, for you see, I just got done sampling a delicious meal at Gasuniorashi, a new eatery on the west side of town, with a fine fiber and bean casserole, and well. Green mist suddenly began creeping from under the bathroom door. The two idiots then began to try and squirm away from their duty/doom. Quickly, the Anbu shoved them into the bathroom, sealed the door and held the door back as the children began to desperately pound away. Some of the escaped green gas then approached a nearby tree, and the poor plant exploded into bark and dead leaves. Shuza chuckled and hummed merrily as he imagined the buffet awaiting him, as Duck whistled for backup. A snail-masked Anbu jumped down from a nearby building to his call. Duck, what's the problem? I need you to hold these poor genin in here for a while. I have just received word of a food item at a new eatery that may be a danger towards humanity. Let me out of here, this isn't even fit for Adobe. Sasuke yelled from inside the bathroom, and now the pink-haired fangirl just collapsed. Meanwhile, with the so-called Dobi, Kakashi, Haku and Naruto found themselves at a lake on the outskirts of the Hidden Leaf Village, preparing for a lesson while the others were out of the way. Okay team, today we are going to practice some water release techniques, Kakashi smiled. Naruto raised his hand. Yes, Naruto. Wait, Kakashi-sensei, since when did I get water release? Kakashi smiled. It came with your storm release, Naruto. Kekai Genkai such as storm and ice release come from the genetic combination of two or more elements. For example, storm is a mixture of lightning and water release, while ice is a mixture of wind and water release. Now, I'm focusing on water release, because that is a release we know both of you can use, Haku and Naruto nodded. Zabuza-sama already taught me how to create a water clone, Kakashi-sensei, Haku brought up. Kakashi smiled. True, but because Naruto's shadow clones already fill that niche, I believe that we should try to get something else in, before they get back. Naruto suddenly looked like he recalled something, started fiddling with hand signs slowly. Perhaps we should start with the water prison. I think that Naruto could pull that off nicely with his shadow clones, or perhaps we should. Naruto ended on a bird hand sign. Hope this works. Water release. Great waterfall technique. No, Naruto. Kakashi yelled before all three of them were engulfed in a huge tidal wave. Gulping for air, both Haku and Kakashi quickly got back on the surface of the water and obtained balance, but as Naruto rose he just kept blubbering around. Or perhaps Naruto-sama should focus on water walking first, Haku commented at his blubbering form with a blush. Kakashi frowned. True enough, but I don't know if I should be impressed with him for somehow picking up that technique on his own, or somewhat annoyed. The last day before Sasuke and Sakura freedom. After 6 days of trial, error, near drowning and an angry Mrs. Haruno and the two bats demanding the lessons ceased with the foreign Kunoichi and the dead last and instead focus on the Uchiha and his pink cheerleader of horror, once free from the poison ward at the hospital. They were getting shown the great waterfall jutsu. Now, standing on the surface of the lake was Naruto, clad in an orange pair of swimsuit trunks, against Haku, who was in a bluish-white one-piece swimsuit with Kakashi standing on the lake shore. Now that Naruto had finally gotten water walking down, it was time to test how far they had come. Haku was to become a member of Team 7 for the time being, and Kakashi needed to make sure the both of them were ready to go out for any more missions like Wave. Now that both had seals on them, administered by Kakashi himself, to block the Sharingan, their moves were free to go. Let's see how good you are, Naruto-kun, Haku smiled. Naruto sighed, it was either this, or Sama. Naruto began to do several rapid hand signs, for lightning release, thunder ball. A ball of static electricity formed in Naruto's hand, before he tossed it at Haku, overhanded. The ball struck her head on, before she dissolved into water. A water clone, Naruto said surprised. It was then that he noticed the water below him to begin to rapidly bubble. Water release. Explosion. An explosion of air flew from below Naruto, sending him flying into the air as Haku burst to the surface, giggling. Naruto's eyebrow rose slightly, before doing his favorite hand sign. Shadow Clone Jutsu. A dozen shadow clones formed from above and all created thunder balls, before tossing them straight at Haku. Ice release. Protective ice dome. A dome of ice formed around Haku, blocking the shadow clones' attacks. Flying from the dome came dozens of ice spikes that quickly pierced the attacking clones, leaving only the original. Not bad. Storm release. Great Twister. A huge twister formed on the lake surface, spinning straight towards Haku, destroying her ice dome, but the girl was nowhere to be found. Wait, where did you go? Naruto was looking around confused. Water release. Explosion. Naruto was sent flying into the air once again before exploding into smoke. Haku gasped. A shadow clone. Water release. Great waterfall technique. A surge of water crossed the wave surface, swamping Haku and sending her flying to the shore. Apparently, Naruto had created an extra shadow clone, and used him as a distraction as he prepared the destructive jutsu. Haku then found herself panting on the lake shore, with Naruto lounging beside her. Not bad, Haku-chan, not bad at all, Naruto smiled. The girl smiled, it took him long enough to call her that. Not bad yourself, Naruto-kun, Kakashi smiled as he shimmered over towards them. Fine spar today, and tomorrow we begin our first mission as a united team again. Haku and Naruto groaned. Kakashi sighed, I hate them too, but we have to put up with them. Hopefully, it will be something where you guys won't need to kill one another over. What they didn't realize were two things. First of all, they were being watched from on top of a cliff nearby, via the white-eyed, all-seeing Byakugan, by none other than Naruto's admirer, stalker, the blue-haired, blue-eyed Hinata Hyuga. She had a smile on her face after watching the two fight. Amazing Naruto-kun, those jutsu were incredible. I hope I can pull off something just as amazing, she poked her fingers together. She would match Naruto's skill one day, and then earn his heart, though this new girl could be trouble for that plan. Smiling, she decided to ask Kurenai-sensei if she could give her some extra training tomorrow. The other was the mission itself they would get. Team 7 had no idea what they were about to find themselves thrust into. In a misty hideaway in the land of tea, altar room. Locked up in a cage, sitting next to a floor littered in coal, was a large bird. Not just any type of bird, but an ostrich. This ostrich, who had 3 pink ribbons on his neck, was an ostrich that Team 7 had returned home on a mission some time ago. This was Mr. Ostrich. The bird was glaring angrily at his captor, before somehow manifesting a voice, yelled. What's the big idea, locking me in this cage? Just who do you think you are? A male voice then laughed. Oh sorry, my ninja ostrich friend, the bird paled, yes, I know about your practice in the ninja arts, plotting your escape and your freedom. I recently heard you successfully mastered the shadow clone jutsu, no? Maybe, but only to earn my freedom. Humans will not hold me in their possession forever. The voice laughed out again cheerfully. Who knows, if this goes wrongly, you might just be freed forever. The bird paled. Did this guy plan to kill him? But, as for a name, a figure walked out of the shadows, before the ostrich. You may refer to me as Taizune, it was the mysterious shinobi. The Sandame was stuck behind a mountain of paperwork, almost wishing he would keel over right this minute. Perhaps the greatest enemy of any cage was the mountains of paperwork that resulted. Sure, whenever a big shot like a Biju attacked, you got to fight, and you got your face on the monument, but all the paperwork was still nasty. Add to it that almost all of the paperwork was from the civilian council. Lessening of the vandalism punishment, are they trying to ask permission to ransack Naruto's apartment? Denied. The Hokage tossed the paper aside, in the much larger pile. Did they really think they'd get these laws? Honestly, were they just trying to annoy him? Back in his youth, and during the other Hokage's reigns, the cages would use bunchins to do the paperwork. Much less stressful, and it freed up time to go out with Jiraiya for research. Damn aging, he just couldn't do a good shadow clone to do his job like he used to. His chakra replenished too slowly, and his clones last too shortly, to do it without killing himself. The Sandame wasn't quite sure if the other cages did the same thing for their paperwork, though he did know that the young Takigakure leader, Shibuki, had came to Konoha for shadow clone lessons with Ebisu. Takigakure, the village had an alliance with Konohagakure, and it had since the first great ninja wars. In fact, that village was one of the reasons behind his law concerning Naruto. He had been old friends with Shibuki's father, and he heard about how they treated their Jinchuriki, a young orphaned girl named Fu. Apparently, Shibuki was her only friend, and her cousin as it appeared. The Sandaime hoped that his law would at least make things simple enough for Naruto, and seeing as he wasn't mugged in the streets, perhaps it worked. Or was it just his loyal Anbu, Chunin and Jonin, like Kakashi, Guy, Anko, Shikaku, Iruka and Tenzo? Of course, this wasn't Kumo, which the Sandaime saw as the best place for Jinchuriki. Soon as Jinchuriki was hated and driven insane, though the child was only Naruto's age, the Iowa Jinchuriki both left the village, with one of them loathing humanity. Kiri's Yondaime was tortured by some odd genjutsu while the Six Tails had become a missing nin, who the cage had tried to track down at one point hoping he could teach Naruto about his powers, and the acid burns his Anbu received showed the guy wasn't interested. But Kumo, because a one Jinchuriki called Killer Bee's heroic actions, valued the two of them greatly. They even had a Jinchuriki festival once a year. Though perhaps it was because Bee was the son of their Sandaime, and the brother of the Yondaime Raikage, the two even had their own houses. Though, such debates were just for thought. He then reluctantly returned to his paperwork. Removal of teacher Iruka Yumino, for blatant favoritism towards Naruto Uzumaki. Honestly, are they just trying to punish those close to Naruto? He then signed something below it. Revised, removal of teachers and political figures that showed blatant antagonism towards Naruto for only his special problem, before sending it back via Anbu. He wondered how they would react. Speaking of Iruka, their investigation had turned up some evidence for them. Iruka had evaluated Naruto's old textbooks, and found that several key pages were missing, such as ones on the clone jutsu, genjutsu, chakra control and hand signs. They also appeared removed by a low-level water jutsu scalpel, something taught by medical nin, which Naruto certainly was not, nor any academy student before him, but the principal of the academy was trained as a medical nin. This man was currently held in interrogation, with Anko who had found a new torture involving rope, a sharp-clawed obese feline, and that recently banned dish from the new eatery, that fiber bean casserole. Sarutobi didn't want to think about it. But hopefully, Naruto would receive the justice he deserved for all of his harsh treatment, perhaps by the time he returned from his C-rank mission with Team 7 to find a stolen ostrich, of all things, out in T-country. But just as he finished denying a request for the right for civilians to bear guns in Konoha and the use of them to protect their properties, probably some other harebrained scheme to harm Naruto, a loud scream was let out from a nearby room. Hiruzen, how dare you threaten just teachers and the entire civilian and elder council? That boy is addling your mind. Koharu yelled at him. He chuckled. This was actually kind of fun. And they were wrong. Danzo was actually on his side these days. Perhaps bringing a rare mistress of the Ice Kekai Genkei, or perhaps gaining one himself, swayed his old rival. Hiruzen smiled, before sending his Anbu to remove her. Land of Tea, rode before. In an ideal story, the merry team of 4, led by their sensei, would be rapidly approaching their target without a hitch. Of course, life isn't just some story written by anyone. No, while Team 7 was making good time, there was a clear divide in the air. On one side there was Sasuke and Sakura. Sasuke was glaring at his teammates Haku, Naruto and their sensei, Sharingan ablaze. Sakura stood behind him, being useless as always. Alright Dobi, do a shadow clone. Sasuke ordered. Naruto smiled evilly, with Haku behind him, but unlike Sakura she wouldn't be useless if this got ugly. Kakashi sighed, this wouldn't end well. And why should I, Tem? The Tem glared, but his Pomeranian barked. Because he ordered you to, baka. Sasuke, learn the thing yourself, and not with those pathetic eyes of yours. Naruto smiled as he walked swiftly up to Kakashi with Haku behind him. Kakashi actually seemed surprised. You know, It's nice to see you're able to just walk away like that, Naruto. Perhaps you're maturing, Naruto smiled. Gash, thanks Kakashi, though being more mature than the Tem might just be like saying you're faster than a rock. Behind him, two pairs of eyes bored into him. But before they could try to stab them in the back. Greetings, Team 7. So, nice of you to show. The team rapidly turned around in shock. Right behind them was the mysterious Nuke Nin. You, give me your power like you did the Dobi, Sasuke demanded. The figure raised an eyebrow, unseen behind his darkened face. And why should I do that, Uchiha-san? Kakashi was slightly more upfront. No mind games, whoever you are, I never got your name. You may call me, Taizune. Taizune, what game is it you're playing anyway? Attacking Leaf Nin, pretending to be on Getu's side. Wait, you, Haku said surprised. All heads turned to her. Haku-chan, you know this guy? Naruto asked confused. She nodded. Yes, this man talked to Zabuza-sama and me before we went to the bridge, something about Zabuza-sama's past. Haku seemed to be glaring at Sasuke as she said this. Taizune, was what you said true? I must know. Taizune stood unwavering. It is true. Yugura was ruined by one of his kind. He glared at Sasuke, but that's not why I'm here. You can just call that confirmation of a tidbit. You kidnapped an ostrich, dare I ask why? Kakashi questioned. Taizune laughed. Now, I could explain my complicated plan, but your genin just don't have the attention span. Let me just give you a brief rundown. It's all about an experiment, to obtain the power I need, to avenge. Well, actually, why am I talking when I should be blasting? Beast Wave Palm. A wave palm of air was sent flying at the group, with a large explosion ensuing. Shadow Clone Jutsu. The explosion, the smoke it gave off gained a new tint from the obvious use of a shadow clone shield. Taizune stood unwavering as the smoke cleared, to show Naruto charging at him. Lightning Release. Thunder Ball. A ball of electricity formed in Naruto's hands, before it was tossed straight at Taizune. The man smirked. Storm Release. Cloud Wall. A wall of storm clouds formed in front of him, blocking the attack with an explosion of clouds. But from that smoke cloud, a dozen shadow clones flew at him. Uzumaki Barrage. A dozen punches and kicks were sent straight at Taizune, who was sent flying into a tree. However, he quickly got back up, and smiled. Your taijutsu improved, Well then, prepare for some fun. He dissolved into water. Kakashi then got poked in the shoulder, as two clones of Taizune appeared next to him. Storm Release. Blade of Katrina. Two blades of thickened clouds formed in the hands of the clones, who sliced them at the copy Nin. A water clone, and why can't I copy it? Sasuke grumbled, as a shadow appeared behind him. It was Taizune. Quickly twisting, Sasuke blocked a fist from Taizune, before he smirked, before dissolving again into water, with another behind him. Wind Release. Hurricane Gust. Both Sakura and Sasuke were blown into a tree. However, he then felt his feet chill. Ice Release. Ice Manicles. Ice manacles had formed at Taizune's feet. Haku smirked. Ice Release. Ice Spike. Spikes of ice flew and pierced Taizune's chest, before he became a wooden log. It was a substitution. What? Not again. Naruto groaned. This guy was slippery. Kakashi, who had just taken out the water clones with a swiping Chidori, turned towards Haku and Naruto. Fighting this guy isn't going to be easy. You two need to find that oversized pigeon he has here, so we can get the hell out of here. Naruto was shocked. But you'll be overwhelmed by this guy. Beast Wave Palm. A wave palm flew and struck near them, destroying the last few shadow clones near them. Haku nodded. Naruto-kun, we can't wait. Kakashi-sensei is right, we need to complete our mission. Naruto sighed, before the two of them jumped into the trees. Taizune watched them leave. URG, there goes my fun. Fire Release. Great Fireball Technique. A huge fireball went flying straight at Taizune, who gazed at it with half his closest eye, before doing a few hand signs. Fire release. Flame bullet. A larger fireball flew from Taezun's mouth and struck the fireball head-on. It extinguished them both. Taezun then commented, "Wow, you actually have a rather impressive fireball, or it was a fluke." Sasuke was angry now and thus charged straight at him. With taijutsu, Taezun blocked his fists, before tripping Sasuke with his leg, sending the boy to the ground. Storm release. Blade of Katrina. A blade of clouds formed and was lowered straight at Sasuke, before from out of nowhere, a great fireball flew into him and sent him flying. Kakashi had saved the last Uchiha, again too much paperwork if he died. However, Taezun dissolved into water again. Shit, this guy can't be human with all this chakra, Sasuke grumbled, failing to acknowledge his sensei saving his life. Taezun, now in the apple tree above him, quickly did a jutsu. Wind release. Drill air bullet. A burst of air like his other bullets flew straight at the Jonin an out-cold lump of a pinky. Kakashi quickly did another great fireball that struck the drill air bullet and destroyed it. Kakashi was cursing inside though, with that boy's Sharingan, he couldn't use most of his arsenal. However, Taezun seemed to ignore the Sharingan for some reason. A reason Sasuke demanded answers for. "Why can't I copy your jutsu?" Taezun chuckled. "It's simple really. I know how to cancel the Sharingan's effect on me. It's really quite simple. How dare you, the Sharingan is the ultimate Kekai Genkai. Ninja art. Apple Shurikan. The apples on the tree Taezun was hiding in flew at Sasuke, before splitting into pieces and impacting into his forehead rapidly, knocking him unconscious. I believe a not wise man once said, "Flutter like a butterfly, sting like a bee." No. This is buzzing like a bee, striking like a butterfly. Kakashi saw it now. Taezun had massive chakra stores, and used massive jutsu to wear his opponent out before taking them out with lower-leveled ones, like the apple shurikens. And it was working. Sasuke was panting, and he was running on maybe 25%. This guy could make some mean water clones. He sighed, before taking a gamble. Focusing lightning formed in and around his hand, with bird calls shortly behind. It was the Chidori. He was too exhausted for his lightning cutter, so this would have to do. Taezun, prepare to meet your end. Kakashi began charging straight at the enigmatic ninja, with his Chidori ablaze. Taezun smiled under his darkened face. "Ah, this looks like fun, if you really want to." Storm release. Dual blade strike. Katrina and Andrew. Two blades of storm chakra formed into Taezun's hands, before he jumped straight down at Kakashi. But as the two S-class shinobi were about to clash, they failed to notice one thing. Sasuke was watching Kakashi, with Sharingan ablaze. The two attacking ninja, the copy nin Kakashi Hatake, and the mysterious enigma Taezun, crossed paths, before the both of them found themselves standing on opposite ends of one another, their jutsu dissipated. Kakashi and Taezun kept silent for a second, before Kakashi yelled out. Quote exclamation mark quote. A gash mark was on his side, rapidly bleeding blood. Holding onto his side, Kakashi dropped to one knee, the ground next to him quickly reddening. Taezun smirked from under his hood. So, it appears that this game is. He dropped down to one knee as well, as spare electric chakra was coursing across him from the Chidori. It appeared that they both were unable to go on. But as it was, the arrogant duck-haired boy, Sasuke, forced himself up. Not bad, Kakashi. Nice job weakening this fool. Now to take him out, with my new jutsu, Chidori. The electric chakra formed onto his arm, with 1,000 birds chirping all at once. Sakura, who was now back up, gleamed with admiration. Amazing. Sasuke-kun rocks. Kakashi was cursing inside. The fool now had an assassination jutsu. He was going to regret this, and he was starting to despise anyone born with a Sharingan, except Obito. Perhaps just because he didn't activate it until minutes before he died and didn't steal that jutsu of his. Taizun was wide-eyed under his cloak. Of course, the fool had to slip up, and the Uchiha now had a deadly jutsu. This was just going to complicate his plans. Chidori. Sasuke charged at Taizun, before Sasuke twitched, as a second later the Chidori flicked away. Sasuke then collapsed. Taizun breathed in relief, the fool was out of chakra now. Kakashi was mildly worried about the paperwork this would require, and Sakura was fuming. Though it was then that he caught the faint sound of breathing as Sasuke forced his head up with the Sharingan flickering. Sasuke-kun, you'll pay. Sakura drew a kunai and lunged at Taizun, who did a quick few hand signs. Wood release. Poison ivy SAP wall. A wall of sappy plants, to be more specific poison ivy, rose from the ground, and caught the annoying pink bug. She yelped. Get me off. Get me off. Get me off. A rock near them shattered from the intense volume. Taizun chuckled, and Kakashi was shocked. How did this guy get wood release, and does that mean Naruto does as well? Taizun forced himself back up, having a brief spasm due to the Chidori, before reactivating his storm blade, and approached the prone form of Sasuke. Now, you have to die, and then I hope those two don't damage the fortress. It's a rental, but before he could kill the child a water jutsu flew straight at him, which he barely dodged due to his injury. The ground was now covered in sticky fluid. Water release. Syrup capture field. It was a team of Konoha shinobi, Kotsu, Azumo and Hayate Gecko, along with a fourth medical ninja he never got the name of before. Kakashi cursed to himself. He was too injured to speak, but now two Chunin and a Tobextu Jonin were about to potentially give the Uchiha more jutsu. Kakashi wouldn't feel worse if Guy beat him in a hairdo contest. You've asked for it. Wind release. Drilling air bullet. Inside the fortress, we now find the two decent genin of Team 7, Naruto and Haku, in a dark hallway. The two were looking around as if expecting problems, and they were. Strange. No traps, Naruto mumbled absently, before Haku sighed. Naruto had to be so cute, and dense. Can't one be without the other? Please, don't jinx it, Haku sighed behind him, before she felt her foot sink. Of course, she had to set a trap, as the floor suddenly rose up dramatically, straight towards the ceiling. Haku! Naruto yelled. Quickly, Haku jumped off the quickly rising floor, seconds before it pounded into the ceiling. However, she fell. Straight onto Naruto. He yelped in surprise as Haku suddenly was crushing him. Worse yet, he was getting a face full of Hakus. Well, at least they were only B-cups, he wouldn't suffocate. Haku looked down at him in surprise. Naruto-kun, sorry, I didn't mean to. She mumbled with a blush. She got off him, as he scrambled back and blocked his face. Don't hurt me. Haku sighed. She wasn't surprised. The only females he really knew before her to any extent were Ayame and Sakura. While Ayame probably never gave him any reasons to cower like that, Sakura. Naruto, you know I'm not mad, it was an accident. Mentally she added that she would like to do it again, perhaps farther, but maybe after he was a year or two older, and they were Chunin. Oh, sorry, he chuckled as he slowly unshielded himself. With a blush, he tried to end the awkward moment. Well, you have nicer than Sakura does, Haku chuckled. Naruto, Tora probably has better than Pinky does. And the cat was male. With that, the two continued on their way to find Mr. Ostrich. Back to the fight. Storm release. Dual blade strike Katrina and Andrew. Dance of the crescent moon. With a cough, the two sword-based attacks collided, as Taizun was sent rolling back. The coughing special Jonin landed next to his panting Chunin teammates. Panting, Taizun was running low on chakra. What even someone like him would be a little tired after fighting an A-rank Jonin. 3 good genin. Sadly, arrogance didn't take Sasuke's skill away, one of which was a Jinchuriki, 1 useless one, 2 Chunin and a special Jonin, with a major injury, unscathed. Not bad guys, this was entertaining. I'm afraid, However, that I must depart now, he used the body flicker technique, wishing he had swift release. The two Chunin turned towards Kakashi. Who was that guy? Their medic Nin healed Kakashi so he could speak, and with a cough deeper than Hayate's. I mean, that guy used storm, and even would release, that shouldn't be possible. His name is Taizun. I have no idea who he is, or what he's doing. I can't help but wonder though. He dropped to the ground in exhaustion, despite the medical Nin's chakra. Is he working with Orochimaru? That did make sense. Orochimaru was the one to graft would release into Tenzo, so it wasn't a far stretch. But his concern now was Sasuke, and whatever jutsu he got from the battle. Back inside the rented fortress altar room. Well, this is creepy, Naruto commented, with a pale Haku nodding in agreement. The castle room they had entered was the basic idea of an evil scientist's lab. There was even a welcome mat saying, "Lab sweet lab," that they were standing on, and a creepy face on the wall grinning like the Cheshire Cat. Oddly, it resembled Naruto's nightcap. Okay, this guy's either an insane scientist, or he has a sense of humor, Haku commented softly. Naruto then noticed the cage with Mr. Ostrich inside it. "Oh, it's you," a voice said. Naruto jumped in fright. Where did the voice come from? It was then the voice spoke up again. It was Mr. Ostrich. "So, the humans have come for me, how quaint. Now, let me out of this cage." Haku gazed at Naruto in a confused manner. They never said he could talk. He shrugged. Well, he never did talk before. Haku, who had been gazing around the room, suddenly stopped dead in her tracks. Naruto, those are summoning contracts. Half a dozen brown scrolls littered a nearby table. Naruto cocked his head in confusion. Summoning scrolls? Haku nodded, as they walked over towards them, and opened them. Each of the scrolls had a different animal on them, a penguin, a raccoon, a beetle, a cat, an ox and a squid. A fresh-looking one was next to them, this one with a fresh-looking ostrich on it. Each had several, rather faded names on them, except for the ostrich. Zabuza spent years trying to find one he or I had an affinity with no luck. The one he did find, the cockroaches, it wasn't pleasant. You see, by signing the contract with your blood, you can summon the animal whose contract you have a contract with from a different plane of existence, or something, where animals can hold human levels of intelligence. Naruto then recalled Kakashi's Ninken. Like Kakashi's dogs? Haku nodded. Exactly. Though, this new one, there shouldn't be an ostrich summoning contract. So, is Taizun making new ones? Haku frowned. Perhaps, but to what purpose I don't know. It's very difficult to have more than one summon-able species, the animals are picky that way. It was then that Taizun appeared in a shimmer. Haku drew a handful of Senbon as Naruto reached for a shuriken. Relax, I'm only a delayed clone, I have no battle abilities. I'm here to say, the ostrich shall be burned alive. Suddenly, a great fire burst forth, forming an impenetrable barrier of fire. This delayed technique, Armageddon Blaze *** will burn your bird alive. He poofed out of existence. Water release. Water ball. A ball of water, like lightning ball, formed in Naruto's hands and he sent the ball of liquid straight into the fire, succeeding in nothing. He looked around in desperation. Save me, I will not be served like a chicken. Mr. Ostrich cried out as flames slowly approached his cage. Naruto gained a serious gleam into his eyes as he turned towards Haku. Haku, what are the hand signs for a summoning jutsu? He demanded as he grabbed the new contract. Let's see, boar, dog, monkey, bird and ram, but why are you? Naruto bit his thumb, and quickly wrote his name down on the ostrich contract, barely legible, before doing the hand signs in a rapid and somewhat sloppy fashion. Summoning jutsu. Mr. Ostrich. A burst of smoke ensured and as it cleared, Haku found Naruto sitting on the now safe ostrich, as if to ride the giant bird. Hey, what just happened? Mr. Ostrich said in confusion. Naruto chuckled. Datbeo. I am Naruto Uzumaki, future Hokage, and first ostrich summoner. Haku chuckled. Naruto-kun, never say that in public. Ostriches didn't exactly strike fear into anyone, though then again, Hanzo was feared for his salamander. Though at least since this ostrich didn't live in its own realm, perhaps that meant he could still sign a regular contract. Well, Haku-chan, and my ostrich minion, he was rapidly tossed off by said minion, who glared at him. Do not call me that, ninjin. Naruto was rapidly attacked by the beak of said ostrich until he managed to escape. Ouch. Okay, ostrich-sama, now let's get you out of here, but wait, we should probably take these other contracts. But Naruto-kun, remember what I said about. I know Haku-chan, but we might as well keep them away from Taizune. Whatever he's planning, the contracts should be safe with Oji-san. Though the challenge would be to keep them away from the Tem and the Pomeranian, Haku agreed. After all, Sasuke might not want the ostrich contract, but the thought of him summoning giant squid or tigers was alarming. But luckily, she noticed a sealing scroll lying around, and quickly managed to seal the scrolls inside it. Naruto was amazed. Haku-chan, can you teach me how to do that? Haku smiled. It was then that Mr. Ostrich interrupted. Hey you two, if you'd stop preparing to mate. Naruto and Haku blushed in a combination of indignation and embarrassment. Can you get me out of here? And by the way, Naruto, be free to summon me anytime you want. It is always good to get away from the farm. Back in Konoha, with Sasuke, Sakura and Kakashi in the hospital for a few days, Sasuke and Kakashi for injuries and chakra exhaustion, and Sakura for severe allergic reactions. That left Haku and Naruto to deliver the report to the Sandaime. He listened intently, before speaking up as he removed his pipe. This is an interesting development. The stockpiling of contracts, while not unheard of, is unusual. Few shinobi can use more than one, and Taizune had 6 of them, and the ability to craft a 7th for a totally new contract suggests something. What? Oji-san. He looked grave. Naruto, you know how you have the 9-tailed fox inside of you. He already knew about Haku's knowledge of it from Zabuza. Well, the fox is the strongest of the tailed beasts, of which there are 9. Wait. There are more of them. Naruto said alarmed. The Hokage smiled. Sealed into others like you, in other villages, yes. They are the Aikibi, Nibi, Sanbi, Yanbi, Gobi, Rokubi, Nanabi and Hachabi, and finally the Kyubi. They are a raccoon, a cat, a turtle, a monkey, a dolphin horse. A what? No one really knows, a slug, a beetle, an ox-squid hybrid, and of course, the fox. Now, theory states that it is possible to summon a tailed beast with a contract of its type. For example, I have the monkey contract, and if I put enough time into it, I could possibly summon the Yanbi, though I'd get its Jinchuriki at the present time. The difficulty of that is why few have tried to summon a tailed beast with their contract, aside for the fact the creature would try to rip them apart if it was unsealed. Naruto looked alarmed. So, what, if someone had the fox contract, they could summon me? It's a moot point, the fox contract was destroyed long ago, its summoner unable to use it again. And there was only one summon-able fox, the Kyubi. There are many monkeys I could summon, many slugs Tsunade could call forth, many turtles Metagai could muster, but no fox summons. So, Taizune was after summoning their Jinchuriki. The Hokage blew into his pipe. Possibly, but seeing as there are no tailed penguins, or ostriches, it is possible he was doing something else entirely. But let those thoughts rest, nothing can be obtained from worrying like this. All of you have received pay for this B-rank mission, and both of you may keep the contracts you found to your heart's content. But, don't try to sign all 6 of them, it's bound to end poorly. That and the fact Jiraiya would kill the Hokage when he got back, before the toads rioted and kidnapped Naruto. I will also keep this from the councils, and I recommend keeping that storage scroll with you at all times. The bank has a no-scroll policy, And it is possible that if the civilian or elder council hear of this, they will demand you hand them over to Sasuke for his use, all of them. Just in case, however, I grant you freedom from such an order. To make it official, he quickly wrote a law and signed it himself. I've already made a call for Sum-san and Hiashi-san to sign this bill as well to help make the bill official. With no canine summons, Sum would hold no interest in the contracts, especially the Cat one, and the Hyuga don't perform jutsu outside of their clan, so Hiashi had no stake in the contracts. But what they missed was a young ninja outside the window listening into the meeting and dashing off. This ninja was civilian born.